Welcome to Reddit Revenge Stories. Did you know over 90% of our viewers don't subscribe? If you enjoy this video, please subscribe and hit that like button. We're targeting 500 likes on this one. Let's dive into today's tale. I never imagined I'd be the man to tell this kind of story. You hear about it from friends or in hushed whispers at work. A cousin's wife, a neighbor's husband, someone always seems to be living a double life. But you never think it'll be your own. You never think you'll wake up one day and realize that the woman you built your life with, the one you shared every piece of yourself with, has been keeping a secret that could shatter everything. My name is Brian Carter. I'm 39 years old, live in the suburbs outside of Austin, Texas, and until last fall, I believed I had a good marriage. My wife Rachel and I had been together for 12 years, married for 9. We weren't perfect, but we were a team. Or so I thought. We met the old-fashioned way, at a friend's birthday party at a local bar. She was laughing at something stupid someone said, and I remember being pulled to that sound like a moth to flame. Rachel had this kind of effortless warmth, the kind that made you feel like she'd known you for years even when you just met her. She worked in marketing and had this brilliant mind for people, how they think, what they want, what they respond to. I was in project management at a construction firm, more practical, more numbers-driven. But we balanced each other. We built a nice life. Bought a house with a big yard and a porch swing she always wanted. We had 2 dogs, no kids. We tried for a while, but things never lined up, and we decided we were okay as we were. We took vacations when we could, hosted game nights, celebrated each other's birthdays with over-the-top plans. It wasn't a fairy tale, but it felt solid. Real. But you see, sometimes the cracks in a marriage aren't loud. They're quiet, creeping in between the routines and the laughter, invisible until the damage is done. I started noticing changes in Rachel last spring, small things. Her phone was always on silent. She'd take it with her even when she went to the bathroom, which she'd never done before. She started working late more often, or going to networking events on weekends. I trusted her, so I didn't question it. I told myself it was just a busy season at her job. Marketing has peaks, right? But the hardest part was how she started looking at me, or rather, how she stopped. There's this unspoken language between people who love each other. The way they share a glance across a room. The way one smile can say, "I see you." That language vanished. She still talked to me, still kissed me goodnight. But it was like she wasn't really there anymore. I didn't want to be paranoid. I didn't want to be one of those guys who snoops through his wife's phone or accuses her without proof. But doubt, it's like rot in the foundation. Once it starts, it spreads fast. One Friday night in September, she told me she had a work event downtown. Something formal. Black tie. I offered to drive her, just as a nice gesture, but she declined. Said she'd be going with a few colleagues and I wouldn't know anyone there. I tried not to let it sting. She came home around midnight, hair a little mussed, makeup slightly smudged, and smelling like someone else's cologne, not perfume. Cologne. I asked her how the event was. She said, "Fine," and went straight to the shower. That was the night I stopped ignoring the signs. I started paying attention, watching patterns. And when she said she had another event the following week, I did something I never thought I'd do. I followed her. She took her car. I waited 10 minutes and then took mine. She wasn't heading downtown. She wasn't dressed for a formal event either. Jeans, a blouse, nothing fancy. She drove to the edge of town to a restaurant I didn't recognize, parked in the back. I watched from 2 cars away. She walked in and met someone. A man, tall, sharp suit. Looked a few years younger than me, maybe late 20s. He pulled her into a hug, too long, too close. She laughed at something he said, and then they disappeared inside. I sat there for almost 2 hours. My stomach turned with each minute that passed. When she finally came out, it was just her. The man left through another exit. She got in her car and went home like nothing happened. I didn't confront her that night. I couldn't. I felt like I couldn't breathe. I just sat in my car watching our porch light, wondering how long this had been going on. How many lies had she told me? How many moments I thought were real had been fake? The next day, I called out sick from work and started digging. Her emails, her phone records, even social media messages. It didn't take long, people leave breadcrumbs, and she'd left a trail of them. Photos, flirty messages, even a hotel reservation under her name from 2 weeks earlier. His name was Eric. He worked for a marketing firm her company had partnered with over the summer. Single, lived in a high-rise downtown. According to what I could find, he was a rising star. Young, rich, flashy, the kind of man Rachel used to roll her eyes at. I still didn't confront her. I needed more. I needed to understand why. I needed to know if this was just physical or something deeper. So I kept quiet, played the part of the loving husband. I kissed her good morning, cooked her dinner, pretended everything was fine while I watched her sneak texts when she thought I wasn't looking. It tore me apart, but it also hardened me. Because here's the thing about betrayal, it changes you. It doesn't just break your heart, it redefines your identity. You start to question everything, not just your marriage, but your own worth, your instincts, your past, your future. I went through all of it, the sadness, the confusion, the anger, and then I landed on something else. Revenge. Not the loud, dramatic kind. I didn't want to scream or throw her things on the lawn. That would only give her more attention. No, I wanted her to feel the depth of what she'd done. I wanted her to realize, slowly, painfully, that she hadn't just cheated on her husband. She'd burned down the only person who truly cared about her. But to do that, I had to be patient, precise. This wasn't about hurting her back, it was about making her see the truth. So I came up with a plan, and the first step was to make her trust me more than ever. I started complimenting her more, surprising her with flowers, planning little date nights, acting like the man who didn't suspect a thing. I wanted her comfortable. I wanted her to drop her guard because when the time came, I wouldn't just walk away. I'd make sure the ground vanished beneath her feet. I'd make sure she regretted every choice. And I wouldn't even have to raise my voice. I just needed time and the right opportunity. It came sooner than I expected. She asked me one night if I wanted to go with her to a company retreat in November. A weekend in the mountains, cabins, team building, hot cocoa by the fire. She said I'd love it, that she wanted us to reconnect. I smiled, told her I couldn't wait, because by then I'd know everything, and she wouldn't see it coming. I kept my promise. I played the devoted husband to perfection. I smiled when I had to, held her hand when she reached for mine, and pretended like the woman beside me hadn't already broken the vows she swore to keep. Every day felt like a test, and every night I passed it by, lying next to a stranger I once loved. What kept me steady was the plan. I spent October watching, listening, taking notes, literally. I had a small journal I kept locked in the glove box of my truck. Every text she sent while turning away from me, every night she stayed out late with a coworker, every little lie, I wrote it all down. I didn't confront her, I didn't lash out, I just documented. Quietly, carefully, like someone preparing a case in court. Because the thing about revenge is, it works best when it's organized, precise, controlled. And I wasn't going to waste this opportunity by reacting emotionally. That retreat in November, up in the Blue Ridge Mountains, was more than just a getaway. It was her mistake. She thought inviting me would remove any suspicion. She probably thought it would make her look innocent, but in doing that, she handed me exactly what I needed. A chance to watch them together, to see how far it had really gone, and more importantly, to let her dig her own grave. The cabins were beautiful, surrounded by trees painted in autumn colors. We checked in on a Friday evening. There were about 30 people in total, all from Rachel's company and their partners. The air was crisp, the fire pit was already lit, and everyone acted like this was just some wholesome team-building getaway. I knew better. I spotted him almost immediately. Eric, Mr. Charming. He was even more arrogant in person than in the pictures. Perfect smile, expensive watch, the kind of guy who believes the world owes him something. I watched him work the crowd, laughing a little too loud, flashing that fake charisma like a weapon. Rachel introduced us. I shook his hand, looked him straight in the eye, and smiled like I didn't know he'd been sleeping with my wife. He barely looked at me. It was clear he didn't consider me a threat. That was his first mistake. The first night went smoothly. Drinks, a big bonfire, people sharing stories and roasting marshmallows. Rachel clung to my arm like everything was fine, and I played my part. but I noticed her glancing at him, more than once, when she thought I wasn't paying attention. I pretended to be tired and went to bed early that night, leaving her by the fire with everyone else. I didn't sleep. I waited. And sure enough, she didn't come back to our cabin until nearly 2 a.m. The next morning, I acted refreshed, cheerful, made her coffee. She seemed surprised by how calm I was, maybe even a little guilty, but not enough to stop. That was the moment I realized she wasn't going to confess. She didn't regret it, not really. She just didn't want to get caught. And that's when I decided I wasn't just going to expose her. I was going to do it in a way she'd never forget. The retreat had a series of trust exercises and workshops. One of them was a group game, where everyone wrote down a truth about themselves anonymously, dropped it in a jar, and then we'd pull slips and try to guess who wrote what. It was meant to be lighthearted, funny, but I saw an opening, so I waited for the right moment, and I wrote the truth I knew would detonate everything. I've been having an affair with someone from work. His name is Eric. When the jar was passed around, people started laughing at the silly ones. I once ate a whole pizza by myself. I talk to my cat like she's a person. Stuff like that. Then someone pulled my note. There was a pause. Everyone turned toward the woman, reading it aloud. I've been having an affair with someone from work. His name is Eric. Silence. Eric shifted in his seat. Rachel froze beside me. You could feel the air change. Someone chuckled nervously. Okay, who wrote that one? Nobody spoke. My heart beat like a drum in my chest. Someone whispered, Is this a joke? I looked around like I was just as confused. Wow, I said. That's dark. Rachel stood up, said she needed some air. Eric followed her a few minutes later. I let them go. Let them panic. Let them wonder who knew. Later that night, I made sure to leave my phone on the dresser, unlocked, while I was in the shower. Just long enough for Rachel to accidentally see the photos I had saved. Screenshots of her messages. The hotel receipt. A picture I'd taken from the parking lot that night. She lied to me. She didn't say anything at first. But I knew she saw them. The next morning, she was quiet, withdrawn. She didn't even look at Eric during breakfast. She knew the walls were closing in. I didn't bring it up. I just smiled and sipped my coffee. On the drive home, she finally spoke. Brian, can we talk? I nodded. Let her squirm in the silence a little longer. She started crying. Said she made a mistake, that it didn't mean anything, that she felt distant from me and didn't know how to talk about it. I let her talk, and then I looked at her calmly and said, I know. She blinked. You know? I nodded again. I've known for weeks. She sat back, stunned. You lied to me, I said. Repeatedly. You made me feel crazy for suspecting something. You brought me to a place where I had to spy on you, just to find the truth. And then you invited me on this retreat to… what? Prove you still cared? She tried to defend herself. Said she was confused. That she never meant to hurt me. But that's the thing about betrayal. You don't get to decide how deep the knife goes. I told her I wanted space, that I'd be staying with my brother for a while, that I needed to figure out what came next. She begged me not to go. Said she'd end things with Eric. Said she'd go to counseling. I didn't argue, I just left. When I got to my brother's house, I opened the private email account I'd set up weeks earlier and hit send on an email addressed to Rachel's boss. It included the screenshots, the hotel records, the internal policy on workplace relationships from her company handbook. It wasn't about getting her fired. It was about consequences, for both of them. The fallout came fast. Eric was let go within the week. Turns out he had a pattern of inappropriate behavior with coworkers. Rachel wasn't fired, but she was put on probation and pulled off several major projects. Her professional reputation took a serious hit. I didn't answer her calls, didn't return her messages. I wanted her to sit with what she'd done, to feel it. And she did. She sent letters, one after another, pages and pages about how sorry she was, how she never realized what she had, how she wished she could undo everything. I read them, and then I put them in a box because I wasn't finished yet. You see, revenge isn't about a single act, it's about the long game. And I had one more move left. Something quiet, something permanent. After a few weeks of silence, Rachel showed up at my brother's door. I wasn't surprised. I knew she would eventually. She looked tired, hollow, like the weight of what she'd done was finally settling in. She asked if we could talk. I let her in. Not because I missed her, but because I needed to say what I came to understand since walking out that day. She sat on the couch, fidgeting with her hands like she was trying to keep them from shaking. Her voice cracked when she spoke. Brian, I lost everything. You. My credibility at work. People look at me differently now. I know I messed up. I know I destroyed us. But I swear, if I could go back and fix it. I didn't interrupt her. She cried, apologized again, said she was going to therapy, said she ended things with Eric for good, that he had moved to another state, unemployed, reputation in ruins. She said it like it would make me feel better. But I didn't care about Eric anymore. I looked at her for a long time. I didn't feel hate. I didn't feel love either. What I felt was empty. She had drained it all out of me. That was the real cost of betrayal, what it steals from the soul. You didn't just cheat, I said. You lied to my face, over and over. You looked me in the eye and told me nothing was wrong. And I believed you because I loved you. I know, she whispered. No, I don't think you do. Because if you truly understood what you did, you wouldn't be sitting here trying to get me back. You'd be too ashamed to look at me. She started crying again. But I didn't reach for her. I didn't comfort her. You burned down our home, I continued. And now you want to act like rebuilding it is just a matter of forgiveness. But some ruins aren't meant to be rebuilt. She begged me to reconsider, said she'd change, said she'd spend the rest of her life proving she could be loyal. I nodded slowly. I believe you, I said, that you'd try. Her eyes lit up just for a second. That desperate hope people cling to when they're drowning. But I'm not the same man you married, I finished, because of you. And I stood up. I handed her an envelope. Inside were the divorce papers, already signed on my end. All she had to do was finish them. She looked at me like I'd just hit her. I already filed, I said. You'll get everything that's fair. I don't want revenge anymore. I already got it. She looked confused, and that's when I told her the final piece. I sent everything to your parents. Her breath caught. I sent them a full copy of everything, texts, receipts, emails. They needed to know. Not because I wanted to punish you, but because lies rot in darkness, and I'm done living in shadows. Her face went pale. They always thought I was lucky to have you, I said quietly. Now they know the truth. She didn't speak. Couldn't. I walked her to the door. Goodbye, Rachel. And just like that, she was gone. In the months that followed, I rebuilt. Not the marriage, but myself. I moved into a small condo downtown, took up running again, started seeing old friends. I even adopted a dog from the shelter. His name's Milo. He doesn't lie, doesn't cheat, just wags his tail and reminds me what loyalty looks like. Rachel texted a few more times after the divorce finalized. Short messages, just to say she hoped I was okay. I didn't respond. Not because I hated her, but because some chapters need to stay closed for the story to keep moving forward. Revenge isn't always about rage. Sometimes it's about peace. And for the first time in years, I had it. I wasn't the broken one anymore. I was free.